Okay. Okay, so tonight's session is about applying for the small neighborhood grants, which are offered by the Vancouver Foundation. They are the people who collect the money from various sources, from personal donations, and they get all this funding money, and then they have multiple grants of multiple different places. But what we're going to concentrate on today is on the small neighborhood grants. So with the small neighborhood grants, they're $500 grants. And then that grant money is given to, in Vancouver area, to the neighborhood house. So it's given to the neighborhood house, and then the neighborhood house distributes it. And other companies might distribute it, other organized might, but I know that I am involved with the neighborhood house with the distribution. So each area gets money and it's divided up. There's Vancouver, there's 4 or 5 different areas. New Westminster, Burnaby has 3 or 4 different locations. And so then each area gets X amount of dollars. And so from that, every area has a committee that is led by one person as kind of like a senior person. And then there's a committee, and I'm on one of those committees for North Burnaby. And we review all the grants, and then we decide which ones will get the money. Okay. This $500 grant is not taxable. You don't have to declare it for tax. It is not refundable. It is not a loan. You get it, you spend it. Okay. You might not get the full $500. You might get a piece of it. Okay. Every area has to be used in that area, and the event has to be taken place in that area. So for myself, I live in North Burnaby. I would have to apply in North Burnaby, and I would have to spend the money, have the grant take place in North Burnaby. Other people, New Westminster, you would have to do the same thing. You apply, if you live in New Westminster, you apply in New Westminster, and you have the event in New Westminster. So if it's a one-day event, it would have to be, let's say, at Queen's Park. If it's Zoom, well, that's different. I guess you still have to be in New Westminster and Zoom from there. However, you could be reaching people all over the world. But the idea is that you're reaching out to your community. The purpose of this grant is to connect to the community. That's really what it's all about. It's just a connection. They feel and they know from research that if you know your neighbors, you're safer in a community. People start looking after each other. So it's nice. You feel more comfortable if you know your neighbors, you know? So how do you get to know your neighbors can be in multiple different ways. It can be from having a potluck dinner to, you know, to getting a get together Sunday afternoon in the park with your children, or you can get together with a group of people and go play baseball. So we want to think about art projects that we can do. So but the grants have been for everything from community gardens to dog parties in the park to children's activities. In Burnaby, we have a big festival every year, which is everybody brings their pumpkins, and there's a big after Halloween pumpkin smash, and you know, or there'll be pumpkin carving, or there'll be probably an Easter decorating thing. Multiple different ways. I have been involved in the grants on different levels. One is as on the team that helps selects grants, but I only select in my own community. I don't select from anybody else. Should we acknowledge that Sophie's here? So we'll acknowledge Sophie's here.
Yes.
Hi, do you want to turn on your video, Sophie, and join us, or are you more comfortable with it off?
Actually, I will turn it on in maybe a few minutes because I will explain to you why.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
If I am going too fast, if you have a questions, just either put it in the chat or just raise your hand and I can see you and I'll answer you, okay?
Sure, yeah, thank you.
Okay, so and then other ways that I've been involved in the committee, I mean, with this grants, is I have submitted my own proposals 4 or 5 times and been involved and gotten the grant and then led it. And then I'm involved in a few grants where I've just been a participant. That's how I met Robin, is we're in an arts talk grant. A woman, Dorothy, started it. She got a grant to connect to other artists during COVID. And I'm not sure how you found out, Robin, about it. I found out because she's in our district, so I knew her, she was getting the grant, and I wrote her and said, could I join? I'm not quite sure how you found out, Robin. Do you want to
I
tell
found
us?
out through the neighborhood house, through
Okay.
that newsletter.
Oh, neat. And then I've also been involved where 3 different times people know that I'm a photographer, so they've applied to get money to hire me as a teacher, and then I've done education. So once I did for teenagers, and it was out and about at night, and we went to Brentwood Mall a few times shooting. And the second time, what happened is 2 times we did it all on Zoom because it was during COVID. And so I was an educator. The grants that I have done, I wanted to meet photographers in my neighborhood. I started it, I called it Photo Connection. And I got to meet some photographers and we put on an art show. We met 5, 6 times and we ended up putting on an art show. And that particular art show kicks off the whole neighborhood house art shows now. So now they have the little gallery. We're the ones who paid for the rods. We got it all started. Okay. So it's really interesting how one little thing can lead to a bigger thing. So this Photo Connection was what started the whole neighborhood gallery type thing. Another thing that I got involved with is I went around and photographed dogs. And I do have a dog company, and I thought, well, it would be really fun inviting all the dogs in the neighborhood to make a canvas. So what we did is we used the neighborhood house and we had all the dogs paint their feet and run around on this canvas that was like 8 feet by 8 feet with all different colors. And the dogs all made a huge piece of canvas. So we did that one day, and that way dog people got to meet dog people. So I did that.
This is your
Yeah, and everybody got a little
puppy
canvas. Yeah. And then also I had a little art show called Walk Dogs, and it was in the neighborhood house, and then it went over to Janet Rutledge's place too. So different things can accumulate. Another thing that I was involved with was during COVID, I started a thing called mindfulness on Zoom, and I did, I think, about 12 different sessions where I invited different artists, and they came onto the place, like onto the Zoom meeting, and they talked about art, what they did, how they're changing their art because of COVID, and what they've done since COVID. And what I did is, I'll just get these for you. Now, because I don't have little kids, I can afford to make a bigger project probably than the average person. And also I'm a bit obsessive, and so I tend to make it bigger. you guys don't have to go this big, but with the mindfulness, it just kind of snowballed. So what happened is I set out to do a little thing about mindfulness, and every day I would go out to my garden in the front yard and in the backyard, and I would take pictures. And so then I made all these little books. So this is all just pictures, and they were different themes. This happens to be a whole book on black and white. And this was the first one that was all in color. So every few weeks, I would pick a theme, from doing black and white photography to color photography to playing and special effects. And then I made all these little books. So my grant was to do the Zoom, but then I carried it on myself. So what I did is I did ask for the money. I wasn't paid, but rather than no pay, I asked for making these little books up. So the grant helped me pay for these little grants. And then what I did, as I heard of people who were having a real hard time during COVID, like some relative died or they were depressed, I sent them a little book. So that's what I ended up doing with the little books. And then one grant I did is I applied for to do pictures of the parks, of the walks and everything. And then I did a picture book, and then I went for the walks. And when I saw people on the trails, I gave them a book if they were interested. So it is a way that you can connect with people daily. It's a way you can connect with people on the phone. You could have a tea party like once every Sunday. You could have artist talks for women and meet and have cookies and tea and show your art. You can learn things. You can hire people. You can offer your own services and pay yourself. And so there's lots of things that you could do with the new Westminster. A lot of the things that we're already doing could be driven by a grant, so that we could maybe pay for a little bit of advertising. They will pay for Zoom. If you wanted to do something on Zoom, they will give you the money you could help pay for Zoom. You could pay for, like I say, little books. You could ask for paper. What they won't give you is money to maybe buy a computer, that kind of stuff they won't. You can spend up to $350 to hire somebody to teach you something. I was talking to Rob, and they're not going to give you $350 for one day, but when I was offered to do photography, I taught 5-6 sessions over Zoom. And if it was a band and you want to have a dance at the end, you could hire a band, and then you would probably get the $350 for people. If you want to do food photography, you could literally ask for the food and then hire a chef for $100 for a few hours, and he could make some food up for you, and all the photographers can take pictures of the food and then eat it after. I mean, that would be honestly all legit to do. Okay. So there's lots of ways that you can think of just connecting with other artists, like literally painting with even finger painting for the day, like, and somebody could pay for, like, you need to pay for papers or rags so it doesn't get messy, paint for the day, rags to clean up, juice to have a juice break, and cookies. And so lots of different ways. And you could hire people to teach you how to do Facebook, how to do Instagram, how to do marketing. You could when I did this photo connection, I asked for $10 for every person for one print. So everybody had one print paid for, and then they had to do more. But I'd like to just show you some pictures, okay? Can I?
There you go.
Okay.
North Burnaby photo connection.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
So now you can see it really big, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So here's when the North Burnaby was in the old building before they moved to the new one. Because they were moving, we took all this space up, and there was about 8 of us in the north. And so here we made a photo show. So the grant paid for $10 basically for everybody to have a picture. It paid for the little pictures. We got a little bit of advertising. We tied it in with BC Culture Days also. Okay, so here's the pictures. And what we did is we ended up buying this rack, which was separate. So everybody, it did cost people some money, but in overall, it actually worked out quite nice, and the grant really helped. So, and then this was another one here that because we started with the photo connection, then later on, here's the dog one, and here's another one. So this rod up on top, if you could see where the rod is, that helped pay for a rod, which the newest minister could really use, because then we could maybe have some permanent display for it. So Pam and I originally, this lady and I were the original ones who did it. And we had 4 walkabouts with our camera, and then had a shows. With the photo connections, we had no rules. Anybody could join. Photos could be shot using any digital device. Just come out and people could just share the passion. And because we live in North Burnaby, we tied it into some of the events, which was the gyro. We had the gyro. We had a lot of the gyro. We had the crowds from the Hats Off Day. Here's the walk of the dogs. We just tried various different things, even from the snow. We hung up the frame pictures. So this one was mine. This here is Pam's. We photographed everything from flowers to the walkabout was chasing crows, and we stopped and did the sunset. We did a lot at Brentwood Bowl. We did a lot about the construction. We did, the final one was at Simon Fraser. So this was the first group. And like, I did not know this. 2 of these people I did not know. I knew Bill, and I didn't know Grant. So I only knew half of the people when I first put this out and just told people that I wanted to do a walkabout and meet people. So, and it paid for the food, so little things that we wouldn't have been able to do, like to do the grants, like we wouldn't have maybe paid for it. And so here is the participating artists. And what you do have to do is advertise that it's either through the Neighborhood House or Neighborhood Small Grants. So that's one thing that they ask you to do. Okay. And if we gave back by doing an artist talk, which was just because we knew we had to from being in grants. So that was what we did for that particular one. Any questions right now? Okay, I'm going to show you another one. This is one that I taught. So this was one where somebody paid me to come and teach. And so this one was Oh no, this here one isn't for teaching. This was for the mindfulness. And so during the mindfulness, every mindfulness, I decided what I would do, the theme was. And here was just the rainbow in the garden. And so I just photographed all the different things in the garden. Well, this was the complete show at the end. So these are all pictures that I took in my garden. And once a week or every 2 weeks, I showed them. So this particular slideshow that I'm showing is a combination of all the final pictures, things that I had did in between. But I'll just close this up right now and I'll show you. I have taken some classes by other people. I took a Spanish class. No, I took a poetry. Somebody was teaching poetry. And I thought, I know nothing about poetry. I would like to learn a little bit about poetry. So I did. I took a little bit about poetry. So this particular Facebook, you can see Facebook right now. This is what I started with. And this was a grant. This was the one that I ended up also making the little books with. And so I created on Facebook Mindful Art with Carolyn. And this is where I was inviting different artists in to talk about art. So it's been a while since I did this. Please bear with me. But prior to doing this, I had different artists come and talk about, see, it's been a few years since I did this. Okay. So this was a spring when we did it. I did one whole thing on abstract, and then I had different artists for that. I'm looking for one thing in particular. I didn't realize I had so many other things on here. Oh, here it is. Okay. So this was part of it. So Mindful Art with Carolyn, and here I talked to Ewan and Grant, which I'm sure some of you might have known. And this was all about their as artists and what they've been doing in so this whole art committee, I'm sure some of you might have heard about the Stride committee. Well, the Stride committee actually stemmed out of the art crawl, which was also a neighborhood grant. So originally I had started the art photo connection, and Ewan had started the living room arts. They were both foundation grants of 500 each. And then we joined forces and we came up with a crawl. After we did the crawl, Ewan wanted to have more community, more younger people in it. So we said, well, a crawl is for the professional artists. So then it became the Stride. And that's how that all started. And it was really technically a small little grant. And so here's with mindfulness. And I brought in, I don't know if you might know him, Bill Thompson. He's a local recycling artist. So he was my guest. So Bill talked about the stuff that he did. And I did some stuff that I've been playing with. And I was basically photographing the garden the whole time, inside the garden and outside the garden. And this one was a dancer. I had met Linda online. I had never, she was offering free classes in dance. So I started taking her dance class and I thought, oh, I could invite her to my show. And so I had her in here. And so that was all done. So I'll just turn this on and you can just hear a little bit.
Some of it is older background stuff, you can mention that, and then some of it is new. And one thing that's really interesting is that this is mindful photography in the relationship to the garden. And the garden really is a metaphor for confined space. And photography, I thought about, do I change the name? But every art today has to go in through some form of photography to get it up on screen and share it. So whether you're a sculptor, a dancer, everything has to go through the digital process that ends up being an image. And so I kept it with photography because that seems to be the final result to share. So, but one thing I want to mention, and you will see that Linda's garden is totally different than mine. You know, mine is an actual yard with front and the backyard and very small space. And
so that's basically what it was. So I had, when I did it, I had like 12 different meetings. So I know my projects are way bigger than most of the people who do a grant, but it's only because I have a lot of background in this, so it was easier. And then also because I can be a bit obsessive, and so I'll just carry it on. And then also I got excited, you know, when I started doing the mindfulness in the garden, I found that people offered to come in and say, hey, can I come on it and talk about me and show my work? And I went, yeah, great. So that worked out really, really well. And so it just expanded and it went 12 classes. And I ended up making 3 little books and mailed out about 60 little books to people that I felt could use a little card, pick me up and have something outside of the isolation period. But there's all sorts of grants from, like I say, making jam, how to make jam, how to cycle, pickleball, you name it. So you guys could think of so many things, I'm sure, and do it in either separate or with New West artists. Like we already have a connection with people. Yes, Robin.
So let's just pretend that we're going to try for something like a series of face-to-face sessions, Carolyn. So
Okay.
let's say that when Jan applies for one, Millie applies for another, and Sophie applies for another, and these would be for in the case of Wen Yan, she would demonstrate Chinese traditional painting techniques with ink and color. Let's say in the case of Millie, we go out into a park or parks and do some painting.
Right.
And let's say in the case of Sophie, we do something like pattern design or making books or making crafts. How would we design something like this where we could maybe have 2 workshops per artist? Would that be about right?
Yeah, but you know what? You could almost apply for 3 different grants. You know, and see which one would get accepted. Maybe all 3 would get accepted, and do it that way. So that is one way to do it, is literally apply for 3 different grants. So Millie wants to do outdoor painting, right? So what she wants to do is get together with some painters. She can teach herself, pay herself. So again, you're not gonna, if you ask for the whole 350, they're gonna, you know, kind of question it. So I would be careful about going for the whole 350 for yourselves as salary, you know. But what you could do is you could say how many people you might expect. Let's say 10, or you can even put a number to it. You want to paint outdoors 10 people. So you could buy 10, 11, 14 canvas boards and a bunch of paint. So people wouldn't even have to bring their paint, you know? And you're gonna go word of mouth maybe for that, you know? And then after you do the paint session, you can do a Zoom and everybody show their work, or they can get together and bring in their work. And now you can have coffee and cookies and a critique for the artwork. Okay, so you can do that. Or what you could do is Millie could come and teach painting to Sophie's group, artist group. So that way Millie is being paid by Sophie's grant. Okay. And so now Millie is going to offer painting to Sophie's patterns. So you could do it that way. That would be interesting too. And then they won't mind as much with the professional fees being paid, you know, with Sophie's paying Millie. So now Millie is going to make a few $100s, because I really believe all of us should be paid. It's not that I might come across like I'm really just into the money. It's just that I'm really tired of artists being asked all the time to do it for free when suits don't do it for free, you know? And a lot of people who are doing it for free, well, there's transportation costs, there's babysitting costs, you know, and there's time to think about how to teach, and you have to have a computer, you have to have a Zoom license, you have to have all these things, you know. So I really believe that artists should be paid. Just we have to eat just like everybody else, you know. So I am really for you guys to ask for some money for yourselves, but if you ask for too much, you're not going to get it. Okay. But Sophie could hire Millie to come and do the painting with her group, and Millie could ask Sophie, or vice versa. And you guys might want to learn, painters might want to learn how to use a Chinese brush. You've been using brushes all your life. Well, now how to work a Chinese brush. That makes sense. And if you wrote the article up saying it's also a good way to learn about different customs, and you know, you could say, I saw this woman's art. You can all come up with the same thing. Oh, I'm really impressed with her art, and I think it's a good tie-in with my art and different people. You can do that. You can all hire Robin to come in and talk about how to set up an art show.
Oh, sure,
If you want photography, you can hire me to come in and do some photography classes. Literally, the new Westminster artist should have 10 grants in this, you know, and there's nothing wrong with it, because we all have stuff that we can pass on to somebody else and teach. And what are we doing? We're encouraging a deeper and deeper connection. Every time the new Westminster artists meet, like on last week when we met at the gallery, I got to know Millie a little bit deeper, you know? And so we're starting to get stronger as a community. The more you get that feeling like you belong, the more you'll go. And the more you'll participate, you know? And the more you'll speak up for the artists and everything else. So I think it's really important. And you know, they might say, geez, we've got 3 artists and we only can pick 2 this time, but don't take it personally. You can't take it personally, because you never know who's going to get the grants, because it's based on how many people apply, right? And how much money, and every judge is going to judge different. If you were in North Burnaby, I can tell you what we look for. We look for things that are more than one day. Like there has to be a reason why it's one day and why it's more than one day. Like if it's a potluck dinner, neighborhood potluck dinner, great. That's a one-day event, you know? And maybe for the artists, it can only be a one-day event, you know? But for a potluck, you know, you're expecting to have a whole block there. So now you're looking at 100 to 200 people. So naturally, that's going to take up the 500 really fast, right? But if 6 artists want to get together in one night, we're not going to give you $500. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So, and they don't ask you who you're inviting. They're going to ask you there is a thing on the application. How are you going to let people know about it? Word of mouth. That's all you have to say. It's word of mouth. Because again, these grants are for people in your neighborhood, technically, you know. Now, Millie, you live in Langley, you know, but there's nothing wrong with you word of mouth, and everybody has to go out to Langley to come out and paint on the field for the day, paint cows, you know. So it can be, you know, like every community has their own place. Like if Robin was to have a workshop, well, it will have to be in Burnaby. If I did a workshop, it would have to be in Burnaby, and you guys would have to come to Burnaby. Okay, so that's really what the major thing is that it has to be, you have to apply in your own community, and the event has to be in your own community. But there's nothing wrong with that, because you know, you can always have a little art show in Langley and invite some art friends from New Westminster to show. It could be an afternoon garden. If somebody had a garden, for an example, you could do a garden art party.
What about it, Millie? What about it, Millie?
Yeah, and you know, Millie, you can hire Burnaby artists. There's nothing wrong, because they won't ask you where they live. You'll just say that you want to hire, you've been working in traditional medium and you're intrigued lately with Chinese painting, and you'd like to learn a little bit about the brush, you know. And so, you know, there'd be nothing wrong with finding out how much a brush costs and going and buying 6 to 10 of them for people to use, you know. There's Sophie, what do you do?
I actually create patterns, and I license my patterns to so far to to 3 companies, and also I teach art.
Okay, so what kind of art do you teach?
And now it's after school that I just teach them sculpting and mixed media, and
Okay.
I'm to teach print media and Illustrator to create patterns to age 16 and up.
Okay, so is this for fashion, for patterns for fashion?
It can be for fashion, it can be for wallpaper or different surface like tiles and anything.
So Sophie, what you're doing is you're teaching how to create like designs to go on a pattern. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, create if they don't know how to draw or create a design, I teach them how to draw, and then I teach them how to create a pattern that can go on fabric, can go on paper, like different kind of material. So it's just the base is to learn
So
how to create that.
yeah, so the pattern, you mean something that can be multiplied and there's no seams, right? So
Yes.
it's not like a pattern, dress pattern. Well, you know, sign me up. See, I'm interested in something like that. So
Sophie, you just got a new student.
you know, something, so there's so many talent, like what's so unique about the New Westminster Association is that everybody is so different, you know, like from painting, from like gouache. I didn't even know about gouache, you know, and people use wax, and James Daly, who does pencil drawing, and it takes him 5 months to do his horses, you know. You know, there's so much talent there that I think, you know, there's lots of grants to be had, and you might get a few more people in the group. Okay, that's fine too. They might end up joining, right, Robin?
Yes.
But what I would do is just don't mention that you're already with an organization like the New Westminster Artists Group,
Mhm.
just say a group of artists, like be more vague. And if they come back and ask you, say, well, I know lots of artists through this group and that group, but don't say if 4 or 5 artists are all writing for the New Westminster Art Association. No. Okay. So you're just really, really interested in pattern making, and you met this person and you would like to hire her. Okay. So then you would ask Sophie, well, Sophie, what would you prefer to do? Do it by Zoom or do it in person?
I think in person is better for sure.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And how long of a course could you do? How many hours in a day?
Maybe 1.5 hours, 1 to 1.5 hours per day.
And what would you want to be paid for that?
Actually, this part is the hardest part that I always ask Robin.
Okay, so would you do it? Would you do it for $100?
For each session, you mean?
Yeah.
No, maybe more because this is very like it's not like something simple to do. Maybe 150.
Okay, so would you bring supplies with you? Or would people have to bring their own supplies?
Supplies, we don't actually need much supplies, just paper and pencil. And then, as I said, we need Illustrator, like the software.
Okay, so that's going to limit you because a lot of people don't have Illustrator. So you would have to create maybe a level 1 where they're doing stuff prior to going on to Illustrator, and maybe, telling them how they would scan it in or something like that. Or
Okay, so in that case, it will be like just the base, that's how they can create that just with paper, that how they can put them together to create a pattern.
right.
And we need also paint, paper, pencil, like painting, whatever we need for painting.
Okay, and how many people would you take?
10 to 15.
So right there, if you did 2 classes,
Mm-hmm.
2 classes, there's $300.
Mm-hmm.
You would be paid, she would be paid $300. Now you still have the $200 for paper and paint and coffee and tea. That sounds reasonable, hey?
Yeah.
So the only other thing is, where would you do it? Where could you offer this class? And this is where it gets a little bit more difficult. Like, where could you offer this class?
Yeah, I never thought about this. That's how, where we can we do it in libraries, like to maybe get a room from them?
Yes, we could do it in the library, or we could do it at the Burnaby Neighborhood House.
Oh, yeah.
No, you can't do it at the Burnaby Neighborhood House. This is New Westminster, so you can't.
Sophie lives in North Burnaby.
Okay, so Sophie could apply for the North Burnaby House. Now, the thing is that if you start doing it at the neighborhood house, you would have to let all the New Westminster people know first, so that they register first before it goes to the North Burnaby House. Otherwise, they'll have everybody who's taken every free class there. Just to let you know, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So you'd have to already be full, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the problem there. Okay, so if you're in North Burnaby, you can offer it there, but you've got to remember there's people who go to North Burnaby House and that's their life. That's their hangout, and they're going to sign up for anything that's free.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to keep it more New Westminster, you just have to let everybody know that there's going to be there, and this is when you register. Okay? Or you save
Right.
so many spots.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so that's basically how you do it, you know, and you have to find the location. And that's one of the reasons why Zoom, if you're doing some things and if you're doing it over Zoom, it's a lot easier to
Mm-hmm.
do it. And it's easier for the artist to teach it because it's just happening over Zoom, and sharing of information is easier than lugging it all and carrying it all.
Mm-hmm.
I got a question for Millie. Millie, what would you offer? Turn your mute off.
I think definitely outdoors, and I would think probably park. Now, it would have to be a park in Langley, I think. Although I'm interested in urban sketching too in the neighborhoods, which is quite fun.
So
Right.
I could apply to have Millie teach us, right, Carolyn?
Right?
Okay. All right. Okay.
You could have her, and because she is coming here, we could be down in the residential area, in the urban area, in the drawing high rises, whatever, you know? So we wouldn't need a location, a fee for that. So let's say for Millie, how much would you want to be paid, Millie?
I'm not used to charging like that. I'm used to like $35 to $50 an hour.
Yeah,
As
okay.
my rate.
So depending, let's say even if we paid her $100 three times to come out, and then there'd be material fee, coffee money after, maybe, whatever, you know? People would have to do they bring their own easels, or do they just a sketch pad, you know? So do you offer people sketch pads? Do you include a sketch pad for every person? And then you have 10 people, you know? So you have to think about, if you're doing costs, like if a sketchbook is $10 or $8 or $6, depending on what size you want, if you're asking for 50 people, then you don't have, the budget has to match.
Right.
Okay. So if you're saying, okay, 10 people, we're going to give them $10 worth of supplies, which that's okay to do that. But you got to have, then that's $100. Now you have to have money for Millie. And then if you want coffee and donuts after to have a discussion or prizes, you got to have money for that. So as long as you got to think about the budget having some logic to it.
Right.
Okay, because they will look at it and they'll go, oh yeah, this person hasn't thought about the budget. They want 50 people to come, and they're going to give sketchbooks, and like, where are they going to get the money? So unless somebody has said, my budget comes out to $1,000 and the project is $1,000 and you're going to give us 500, and we're going to go to the stores and ask for free coffee and donuts from Safeway, and we're going to ask for Opus to donate some books, then they'll say, oh yeah, okay, well, it's feasible. This is all going to work because the budget is making sense. Okay, so they're really into the budget. Does it make sense, or is it people are just putting down money just to do it, you know? So yeah, with the Illustrator, Sophie, the only way you could do that is if it's online and people have Illustrator, or people are going to do their art, and then you bring your own computer, you set it up, you have a projector, and now you project to show them, okay, This is the drawing part, which I can teach you. This is the next step, which I can't teach you because you don't have Illustrator. But this is how you do it. Or you have the drawing and then one final meeting, which would be on Zoom, and you share the screen and you show them how you're taking the sample drawings and you're creating an image in Illustrator. Okay. How much Li Ming, how much is a Chinese brush? Oh, you gotta turn it on. No.
Yeah. Leming is my husband's name.
Oh,
my name
okay.
is I use his phone, and I'm not sure how much for one pay in Vancouver. Maybe I bought one. Maybe $10 or $20. I'm not sure.
Hey, that's
Because
expensive.
yeah, expensive.
Unless you had a set of them and people just borrowed different sets and they tried it. But that's getting expensive. That's taking up, if everybody got one brush, that's $20, 10 people, there's 200 of your budget, you know?
Yeah.
And people, what you'll find is people will sign up, but they don't want to spend, they don't want to have to spend $20 to try something. They want to try it free, and then if they like it, they'll go out and buy some material.
Yes, that's true.
Now, rice paper, what about rice paper? How?
Rice paper is not very expensive in Vancouver. It's depend the size you need. Because it take long time to finish. To finish one piece of Chinese traditional Chinese painting. So it's depends size. We can use smaller. Maybe it's needed. Small money. I'm sorry.
Less.
I less money maybe
Less.
for the small size, and the brush, because the brush have different quality. Yeah, I bought in a shop in Vancouver. It's not very expensive, but it's not good.
Yeah.
Maybe I can check the price. Maybe I will check
Yeah,
the price.
you would have to check and see what it would be like. Like if you could get a few brushes for, I would think that you would almost have to be able to, like if you have 10 students, it's got to be about $10 a cost, Otherwise, it's just getting it's too expensive,
Yeah, yes, it's true.
And the thing is that maybe they can learn it with a basic brush, a cheap brush, and then if they're
Buy the expensive brush later, right?
Yeah, if they're interested
Start with
in
a cheap brush and then buy the expensive brush later.
Like another thing that is like Janet teaches the acrylic. I think that would be lovely to have a course in acrylic pouring, if she'd be interested in it, and sometimes you can't afford, like I don't know how much the acrylic is expensive for the pouring, and maybe people would have to bring their own canvas or bring pictures already, and then the acrylic is added on or something. Or what happens is that people don't get to make their own item. It becomes a show and tell.
A demonstration.
Yes, a demonstration. So you have to think about that. If the materials are just so expensive and the brushes are so expensive, then maybe it becomes a show and tell. So now you could do multiple, like we talked about how Millie could hire Sophie could hire Millie, blah, 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 that way, or you can put out a course for yourself. You want to teach this, this is what you're going to charge, and do it yourself. Or the other thing is somebody do it and just have each night a different person talk about your work, talk about brush painting, talk about cartooning, talk about pattern making. So it becomes more of a workshop and different kind of discussions, and people show. So that is kind of nice too, because then you guys would all get a chance to show your portfolio to the other members, like the mindfulness, like what I did is I got to know other artists, and artists got to see my stuff, and every week we had a show and tell about our own work and stuff. So that was really nice. And that way you'd give an honorarium, let's say you could have $350 and have 7 people, Robin, come on the show and give them an honorarium. And with the other 150, you can buy Zoom. You can get a professional they allow that to get a professional upgrade to Zoom, because if you don't have the professional upgrade, you can only do a 40-minute talk. So that they'll pay for,
Mhm.
So that's a nice way to showcase different New Westminster artists. And it doesn't have to be because you're in Burnaby and you're going to do your show from Burnaby. You could have other artists. I wouldn't advertise that they're from other parts, but you just say you want to invite artists from different mediums, local artists from different mediums. Well,
Right.
just make sure you have a few Burnaby people, and other than that, you're fine. I mean, when I did my show, I had one lady from Hawaii and one man from Cleveland or something, but the majority were local people, so it was okay.
Right.
But anyway, any questions? Millie, you got a question? Sophie?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So for this pattern design, how about I just find people like students that want to take what is it, I forgot the program that is about texture and fabric. Robin, which one I'm talking about? They have it in Surrey University.
No, I can't remember.
I forgot the name of the program. So anyways, if they wanna go to that program, if they are interested, they can try creating patterns before they go there, because they need this.
You know what? Yes, you can. You do not have to do something that is geared towards the New Westminster artists. No, you don't. This isn't just to do stuff for them. You could do it, and you want to get in people for students, so yeah, you could. But you cannot charge anybody. That's a really good question, okay? Because one of the things about this grant is nobody can charge the participants a penny. Okay? So in that case, you could write and say, okay, I want to be paid $350. You'd get, apply, ask for it. They would probably give it to you if it wasn't a 1-night thing or a 2-night thing. If it was 3 nights, they'd probably give it to you. But if you're going to ask for $350 for 1 day, unless it's a full day, you're not going to get it. They'll say, or you'd have a hard time getting it. Okay. It's not that you won't, I can't speak for each place, but if it was just most of the time, if it's a 1-day event for a few hours, you're not going to get the full 350. Okay. For one person. But if you were going to do a 2-3 day class or 3 times or 2 full days or whatever, a longer period, you have a chance to get it. And then you could also ask for Zoom, a proper Zoom, and you're going to be giving pattern courses to friends, to students who are interested in pursuing this as a career.
Mm.
You could try it. Yes. And that is still, you got to remember that you cannot charge anybody a penny. The whole thing is that it's free. Okay. That's why they allow you to buy sketchbooks for the people. Okay. Because some people don't have money for a sketchbook, and they're not going to go out and buy a sketchbook for a night class, Now, you don't have to, let's say that you want to do this more than once. You can get sketchbooks, but they don't have to keep them, You will give them materials to use. So you can, let's say you offer it for the day, and they get sketchbooks. So when they're finished, tell them to rip out their pages and leave the sketchbook. Now you've got the sketchbooks for next course. And now maybe you got more money to add some more paint or different colors or something like that. So it doesn't have to be that they get to take it home. You cannot charge them a penny to come in and take the course. Okay. Or an event. You can't ask them to bring in their own cookies. Like, it's supposed to be free to the person. Okay.
Right.
But yeah, you could do it. You can do it, gear it for people who are more seriously on a different level,
Right.
So
Thank you.
any other questions, Robin?
No, you've covered the basis, I believe.
Millie? Yeah, no, I really think that a lot of the things that you guys have been doing, they could come under this grant so easily, and help pay for stuff. And then you have some supplies or whatever. Robin, you mentioned about going to Charlie's, Eddie's Hang Up.
Yes.
And that's where you can get those rods for hanging images,
Yes.
And so if you wanted to set up a grant where you're going to do the hanging of it, make it more convenient for some place, and then can have it. There's, it's worth trying for that kind of stuff, So, and another thing you can, it can always go under supplies too, working supplies. It doesn't have to, they can get a little bit touchy for things that are capital expenses. So like when people apply for gardens, they say, well, to build the boxes, that's capital expense because it's going to be there next year, right? But the dirt is not capital expense, So the film rods, the hanging for the gallery rods would be considered capital expense, but if you write something down like adjustable, movable, then they'll think, oh yeah, they can be taken and moved on, and it might be okay there. So
Okay.
So good luck with applying. You have to check out your own city. I think you have till March 15th. And the thing is that the grant doesn't have to be done until November. So if you apply in March, you'll find out by the end of April whether you have it. So think about doing your grant sometime in the summer, early, like basically from May to October. And when you're finished, write them up a letter, what you did, how successful you were, show them pictures, and then you've got a chance for another grant because the grants will start again. There's tons of people who get grants every time, because they have to give the money away. If they don't get the money, you know what happens is they'll give the money to another district. Okay, so every district wants to save their money, because if we don't use, like in North Burnaby, if we don't use it all up and give it away, they're going to give it to Central or to South, and then we'll never get it back. So they want to give the money away. Okay.
Okay, Wenyan and Sophie, you gotta get on this case here for North Burnaby.
Yeah,
I can
and
do South Burnaby. If Millie, you do Langley.
sorry, because I was late. I have another question. So where can we apply? Where can we apply?
Go to
The links are in the chat, Sophie.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and so just follow the link and look at your city. Langley could have a little bit different rules. I don't really know, you know. So Sophie, you're north or south?
I'm in north.
You're north.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you can always send it beforehand and I can take a look at it and send it back, you know. I can't guarantee you'll get it, even though I'm on the committee. Like, it all will depend on how many people have applied, right? So, but yeah, you can always ask Robin or ask me and we'll try and help you get a grant in, you know?
Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
And
Okay.
Wenyan's in North Burnaby too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the North Neighborhood House is a good place and they do accept people to do their grants there. They don't mind at all. The thing is that I do know there's people who are full-time grant takers, like participants there, you know, so you have to be a little bit more cautious. But Robin, you could always apply for the gallery at the gallery house there and invite the new Westminster artists there too. You know, you can apply as a curator. You don't have to necessarily, you know, be an artist, but you could apply as the curator and you're curating, or you want to invite this community into, you want to broaden, write up the request that you want to broaden, you want to introduce North Burnaby to do the Westminster artists. There's nothing wrong with that. And you could apply to do an art show there up against that whole wall for the artists. And you could get a grant for that because you would need some money, you know, to pay for the opening ceremony tickets, like food. You would need some money for advertising. You might need some money to help pay for frames, or pay yourself for doing the curating, you know, or maybe you want to hire judges to come in and do the selection, and so you want to give them an Opus honorarium card. I mean, there's different ways to spend that budget, you know, that are legit. They're legit, honest ways, and there's nothing wrong with having a thank you or a door prize of an Opus card for the community center, like for the North Burnaby, or you can pay an artist. You could do an art show, then everybody in the art show could select one painting, or give a gift certificate to the North Burnaby House where they get to buy one painting for a value up to $100, $200, you know, as a gift certificate. Or you could give it the money to the artist and have a group decide which piece, like have people vote on which piece gets donated, and then buy that piece of art from the artist and then leave it as a gift. So there's lots of ways that is legit to spend the budget. Okay. So hopefully you've got some ideas rolling. So
yeah, you gave us a lot. Thank you very much, Carolyn.
You're welcome. And
that's a lot to absorb.
Yeah, well, put it in, like I say, it's always been the thing that I've enjoyed being on the committee, because I really like to see the grants happen and the pride that people take in doing their grants, so it's exciting. It's exciting for people to see that they've done something and they've met something and they've, connected with people that made something important to them. So it's nice.
Mhm.
Okay, any questions? All right. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Wow.
Thank you, Robin,
Thank
for
you,
setting this
Carolyn.
up.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Thank you, Carolyn.
Okay. Okay, so Robin, we'll see you on Wednesday, okay?
All right.
Okay, I'll meet you there. And yeah, I'll go to Eddie's with you because I do need a few things. And I'll show you the hanging frames, like the rods.
Okay.
And they've got some really cool frames too.
Okay.
So yeah. Okay. Okay, good night. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Okay, bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.